Welcome back, family. This is LANCESCURV of LANCESCURV.com. In recent years, Tariq Nasheed, the creator of the Hidden Colors documentary series, has gained notoriety for his commentary on race, culture, and history. His organization, Foundational Black Americans, otherwise known as FBA, claims to represent the interests of African Americans descended from enslaved Africans in the United States. While organizing around shared history and culture is commendable, Nasheed's rhetoric often devolves into divisive attacks on Africans and members of the African diaspora who embrace their African roots. This ideology, if left unchallenged, threatens the global solidarity necessary for overcoming systemic oppression and reclaiming our collective heritage. As an American African who has proudly embraced my roots by relocating to Ghana, West Africa, I find it deeply troubling that Nasheed spreads falsehoods about Africans. On his social media platforms and YouTube channels, he perpetuates damaging stereotypes, mocking Africans as poor, uncivilized, or primitive. He speaks derisively of Africans' traditional diets, their supposed smell, and accuses them of economic inferiority. Such rhetoric not only disrespects the diverse and vibrant cultures across the continent, but also reinforces the harmful narratives used historically by colonial powers to justify exploitation and dehumanization. Nasheed's divisive tactics align disturbingly well with strategies outlined in Memorandum 46, a U.S. government document from 1978. This memorandum, made during President Jimmy Carter's administration, outlines efforts to prevent unity among Africans and African-descended peoples globally. It emphasizes exploiting divisions between Africans on the continent and those in the diaspora to stymie the formation of a united global African front. By creating a false dichotomy between African Americans and Africans, Nasheed's rhetoric perpetuates the very dynamics that Memorandum 46 sought to exploit. His attacks on African nations and their people do nothing to address the systemic forces, colonialism, neocolonialism, and global capitalism that have impoverished many African nations. Instead, they sow distrust and hostility among people who should be natural allies. Nasheed's divisive commentary begs the question: what do leaders like Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali, or Marcus Garvey say to his narrow-minded worldview? These figures, who dedicated their lives to the liberation and upliftment of Black people worldwide, understood the power of unity across the borders. Malcolm X famously said, "You can't hate the roots of a tree and not hate the tree. You can't hate Africa and not hate yourself." He recognized that African Americans' liberation was intrinsically tied to the liberation of Africa. His travels to Africa and the Middle East solidified his belief in Pan-Africanism and the necessity of forging alliances with African nations. Would he not condemn Nasheed's divisive rhetoric as self-defeating? Muhammad Ali's pride in his African heritage was evident when he visited countries like Ghana, Nigeria, and Egypt, where he was celebrated as a hero. Ali embraced his African roots and used his platform to advocate for unity and justice. How would he respond to Nasheed mocking Africans' culture and livelihoods? Marcus Garvey, the father of Pan-Africanism. Marcus Garvey championed the idea of a united Africa as a beacon of hope for all African-descended people. His Universal Negro Improvement Association, UNIA, sought to bridge the divide between the diaspora and the continent. Garvey's famous declaration, Africa for Africans, at home and abroad, stands in stark contrast to Nasheed's rhetoric, which seeks to alienate African Americans from their heritage. Thomas Sankara, though not an African American, Burkina Faso's revolutionary leader Thomas Sankara exemplifies the power of African unity. Sankara championed self-reliance, women's rights, anti-imperialism, demonstrating that Africa's challenges can be met with African solutions. Leaders like Sankara would challenge Nasheed to address the root causes of Africa's struggles rather than disparage its people. Nasheed's focus on separating African Americans from Africans undermines the global solidarity necessary to address shared challenges. The transatlantic slave trade dispersed African-descended people across the globe, but it did not erase our shared heritage. From the Caribbean to South America to Europe, African-descended communities face similar struggles against systemic racism, economic inequality, and cultural erasure. Unity among these communities is our greatest strength. Instead of mocking Africans, Nasheed could use his platform to highlight the resilience, creativity, and achievements of African nations. He could educate his audience on the devastating impact of colonialism and the ongoing exploitation of African resources by multinational corporations. He could celebrate the cultural, economic, and political advancements happening across the continent, such as the transformative leadership of Burkina Faso's President Ibrahim Traoré, who is working to reclaim his nation's sovereignty. Tariq Nasheed's divisive rhetoric serves the interests of those who wish to keep African-descended people disunited and powerless. As African Americans, Africans, and members of the African diaspora, we must reject this narrow-minded doctrine and embrace the vision of unity championed by leaders like Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali, and Marcus Garvey, and so many countless others. Unity does not mean ignoring our differences. It means celebrating our diversity while recognizing our shared destiny. It means building bridges instead of walls, forging partnerships instead of rivalries, and working together to overcome the legacies of slavery, colonialism, and racism. To Nasheed and those who follow them, I ask, how does mocking our brothers and sisters in Africa advance the cause of Black liberation? How does perpetuating stereotypes and falsehoods about Africans bring us closer to freedom? And most importantly, how can we hope to achieve justice and equality if we remain divided? It is time to reject the politics of division and embrace the power of unity. For as the Akon proverb says, unity makes a nation strong. Let us honor the legacy of our ancestors by working together to build a future worthy of their sacrifices. This is LANCESCURV of LANCESCURV.com. I would like to hear your comments, whether you agree with me or whether you agree with the rhetoric and divisive talk that surely looks like the work of a federal agent.
LANCESCURV.com. Bold, raw, and uncut.